This is a Rattle and Hum Sports podcast for Thursday, May the 9th, 2013. I'm Bryan Houston, and we are talking Texas Rangers right now with Rattle and Hum Sports contributor Dic Humphrey. How you doing, Dic?
I'm fine. How are you this afternoon?
Doing very well. Thanks very much for doing this. We haven't talked in about a week, and in the matter of that time, we've seen the Rangers sweep the Boston Red Sox and go from the highest of highs, and then have not such a great game against the Cubs. But as we speak right now, they're sitting really pretty in the American League, right?
They are. They're 21-13. They've got a 4-game lead. They're off today. Oakland has already lost today, and that's the largest lead in any division. And that record, 21-13, is shared in the American League by Boston and Baltimore. Surprisingly, Baltimore snuck in there. And in the National League, the Cardinals are slightly better. They've got the same number of wins at 21, but they only have 12 losses.
So the Rangers are playing very well as the injured list continues to grow. First, Pierzyynski on the DL now with the strained oblique. How big of an impact is that going to have on this Texas ball club?
Well, Soto was Giovanni Soto is backup that'll get the lion's share of the catching time at this point in time. He was the main catcher last year. He was the guy they traded for at the trade deadline in July with the Cubs, and he was particularly complimented on his work with Darvish. Darvish was just unbelievable his last 8 starts, and Soto caught all of them. And this team should have enough offense. I'm not saying it does, but it should, to take a little hit there. And quite frankly, Pierzyynski has not hit very well with this injury for really a couple of weeks now. So perhaps some regular work, and Soto will find that stroke and hit a little better. He's already showing some signs of that.
Okay.
It was surprising. It's been surprising to me that Pierzyynski's at 37, and that Washington has played him as much as he did. In the past couple of years, they pretty well had a tandem where one catcher was on schedule to play 90, 95 games, and the other one was on schedule to play about 65 games. And Soto has not had many opportunities. He has really pushed Pierzyynski hard. And in his defense, I'm sure the offense has been a little iffy at times and inconsistent. I think he wanted to keep Pierzyynski's bat in there, even against some left-handed pitchers. But anyway, the Rangers won't have him for a couple of weeks, and they called up Robinson Chirinos. Chirinos was a Cub that the Rangers had an interest in a couple of years ago, and he ended up getting traded instead to the Rangers to Tampa Bay in the deal that brought Matt Garza to Chicago. And so the Rangers made a deal earlier this year and got Chirinos, and we'll take a look and see what the Rangers have here. Eli Whiteside has really had better numbers at AAA Round Rock, and I believe done more of the catching, but Chirinos was on the 40-man roster, and Whiteside wasn't, so Chirinos gets the call.
Now, I know prior to recording this podcast, we talked for a brief time the night before, and you've always had a little bit of an issue with the way the Rangers approach acquiring catchers as it was, right?
Well, it's just disappointing that in the course of developing the farm system as they have for really the past 6-7 years since John Daniels became the general manager, that they haven't been able to come up with a better permanent solution at catcher. There's not a whole lot of Matt Wieters and Buster Posies hanging around these days, but it sure would have been nice if they could have developed someone in the middle of their career like they have, Elvis at shortstop, Kinsler at second, some solid players in the heart of their career. They've been going with with basically older retreads, the Benji Molinas, and Yorvi Toriyama's, and they got Soto last year, and it's just disappointing that if they haven't been able to come up with a better catching solution for the long term, with all the good things that have happened in the past 4 years.
Well, speaking of some of the good things that have happened, one of the things that's happened is that Derek Holland right now is pitching some of his best baseball. In fact, has an earned run average even lower than Yu Darvish's right now after the 4-1 win over the Milwaukee Brewers on Wednesday night.
He's been really incredible, and of course Wednesday night he stepped up, coming on the heels of 2 straight losses, and he didn't really have his best stuff. He gave up more hits than any game he's given up this year, but he somehow got through 7 innings, giving up 1 run, and that sure plays well. He's gotten a quality start in all but one of his starts, and he's certainly taken up the slack that he's probably pitched better than we expected Matt Harrison to pitch. So he's taken up the slack of not having Matt Harrison for sure.
And then on top of that, they beat Kyle Lowes, who was one of the guys that many people wanted the Rangers to make a move to try to pick up in free agency last year. And as it's turned out, either the decision or the inability to sign him has worked out in the Rangers' favor, right?
So far, it looks really good. Of course, with Justin Grimm and Nick Tepish at the back end of the rotation, giving the Rangers some good starts, it's made the pitching rotation look pretty good. But really and truly, the reluctance on Loesch was probably less on the money. He ended up getting around 3 years for $33 million, and more on the fact that he had to forfeit your number 1 draft pick to sign him, and the Rangers just flat didn't want to do that.
Well, and it's worked out because Loesch is 1-4 right now and struggling at this point. So on all fronts, it seems to be at this point a good non-move for the Rangers. Now you mentioned the back end of the starting rotation and Grimm and Tepish and the job that they've done. Have you seen any signs that the big leagues has caught up with them yet?
Well, it is scary. They have certainly didn't pitch very well in either one of their starts earlier this week, and you can only hope that that's not what's happening. It still is a long season we're still relatively young players to be making their debut in the majors, but it is a little concerned. But on the other hand, there's probably some help on the way too. We got the first start out of Martin Perez, who was actually in the rotation at the end of last year. His first minor league rehab start was at Monday night for Frisco against Midland, and he pitched 4 innings and gave up 5 hits, 1 run. And Colby Lewis is pitching today in Las Vegas, his first minor league rehab start. Perez is scheduled for his second one against Corpus Christi on Saturday, so hopefully within another couple of weeks, at least one of those guys will be ready to step in if we see any more faltering from Tepish or Grimm.
Talk a little bit about the offense, too. We started to see Adrian Beltre's bat come alive over the weekend, having some big at-bats and helping to get a walk-off win against Boston. Again, we see Ian Kinsler continuing to have just a terrific year after struggling most of last year.
Well, in Kinsler's case, I think there is no question Dave Magadan, as the new hitting coach, has just made a huge difference in his approach. We're seeing a whole lot more hits going to right field. He's obviously waiting longer, not trying on pitches, not trying to pull all the pitches. And he's having a much better all-around offensive season than just an improved batting average. Certainly Beltre is showing some power and some spark, and that's a really good sign. The Rangers, were without Lance Berkman this week, playing in National League parks. They didn't have the designated hitter, and he made 2 pinch hitting appearances, but didn't start any of those 3 games. So a little bit of a hit in the lineup there. The offense is still inconsistent. Last Thursday, for example, they got a season low 3 hits, and the next day they got 18, the season high. So it can vacillate drastically from day to day.
But they continue to win and are in a great position where they are right now. And in the meantime, you were talking about the Oakland A's last night. They lost a ball game where they got robbed of what appeared to be a home run. Where do you stand on the idea of using instant replay in a situation where it looks like there clearly was a home run in that ball game, and yet the umpires seem to all have completely missed it when everybody else in the ballpark thought it was out?
Well, and they did use replay. They did take a look at it. And there's been a lot of backtracking today. MLB has admitted it was the wrong call. They have sent a special representative to go over what happened with the umpires. So they sent him to Cleveland today to go over to see what they saw and why they came to the conclusion that they did. Certainly an embarrassment for baseball. The limited instant replay was supposed to take care of certain things in certain circumstances, and it's just disappointing that it didn't work. I still think in the end that the solution is going to be somewhat akin to what college football does, where they have an extra umpire, so to speak, that would be in the press box or in a booth somewhere with the access to the instant replays and to basically overrule a controversial call. And just from the time standpoint, for these guys to meet, decide they want to do it, run inside, go look at it, talk about it, come back out, the delays just really aren't good. But if they could streamline that process with the extra umpire in the booth, I think they may be on to something here.
Okay, and now here's my conspiracy theory, Dick. I think the umpires purposely got it wrong so that they wouldn't institute the replay as a regular thing.
Well, there's some question about that. Supposedly, Angel Hernandez was the crew chief, made some statement that they didn't have access to all of the replays that fans did looking at their televisions. MLB has refuted that today in saying that all of the replays from both the visiting team and the home team's television feeds were available to them. And so it's kind of doubtful they have a 55-inch big screen HD TV to review these calls when they go inside, wherever they go inside and look at them. But it was still disappointing last night that they were not able to get it correct. But from the Rangers' standpoint, it was certainly a blessing because the Athletics lost. Now, one thing, the home run would have just tied the game. The Athletics still could have lost it, but you'd still like to see these things get done right when they're in the slot that fits for the definition of the instant replay right now.
Let's go back a few minutes. You talked about Ian Kinsler and the difference that a change in a batting coach made for him and Dave Magadan. How much of a difference, how much of an impact does a hitting coach actually have? Or is it a bit overstated in some cases? I mean, I remember when Rudy Jaramillo was considered almost a savant when it came to being a hitting coach, and yet the Rangers kept on hitting after he was gone. How big a difference does a guy like that make? What does he do that actually makes a hitter better?
Well, you've got really two aspects of it, and that's the mechanics of the swing. Rudy Jaramillo was very big on that, and the players really took to him and really responded to him. I mean, he still gets calls from players that he knew in Houston when he was the hitting coach for them, as well as former Rangers. Even when he was gone the last 3 years, was getting calls from him. uh, Clint Hurdle followed him, and Hurdle was really good, and he worked probably more on the mental approach. He had a point system of what constituted a good at bat, and if you got 13 of those good at bats in a game, you had a 60% chance of winning. He explained this point system to me one day. He was a very charismatic person, and he was a big help to that 2010 team. And quite frankly, the last 2 years with Thad Podsley and for very briefly, and then Scott Coolball, some of the hitters seem to certainly wane in their performances, and I don't think either one of those coaches had these guys' attention where they could get them to do what they need to do or be in the right mental state when they got up to the plate to hit the ball. So
they really do make a big difference then.
I think so. Hurdle especially was a really good one. Rudy, someone I've known for a very long time, and he's coached my kids. I've seen him give lots of lessons, and he's a very good one. And with the Rangers and the fans are optimistic that Dave Magadding will turn out to be a very good one too.
Okay, very good. What's the latest that you hear on Matt Harrison?
Well, he had a setback. He had to have a second operation. They don't know even if he'll be back, but it looks like it's going to be August at the earliest, and my guess is probably even later. Kind of disappointing, but this team, that's one thing that this team has done in the past few years when they've had injuries, they just kind of kept on going and figured out a way. And so far, Justin Grimm, Nick Tevish, and Derek Holland and Alexi Ogando have been pretty good to go with Yu Darvish. So and the machine just keeps rolling.
All right, and of the if you were having to give out the most valuable player awards, just kind of looking at the way this thing is going right now, who would you say right now is the player of the year for the Rangers at this moment?
Well, I'd go, if it was just one player, I'd have to go with Yu Darvish. He's just so dominating. You can see it. The team just rallies around him. They know when he's out there that they are probably going to win the game. And he's 5-1. And they won the one no decision that he took, so they are 6-1 in their 7 starts. He's just so dominant. You just see a livelier team on the field, and he's so competitive. Last Sunday's game against Boston, he was magnificent. He ended up throwing 127 pitches, and Washington said after the game, it was that type of ball game. We needed every bit we could get out of this guy, and if you looked at it offensively, I'd have to put Nelson Cruz the offensive player of the year so far.
Wow,
he's leading in home runs and RBIs.
And then, of course, maybe the biggest disappointment of the seasons. It's a very young year, I understand, but David Murphy's really struggling.
Yeah, he is, and it's he doesn't seem to be showing any signs of getting out of it either. He's definitely frustrated with some at bats where he's hit the ball poorly and he's kind of slammed the bat in disgust. Obviously, it's weighing on him mentally too. It's even he has a history of slow starts and gets going later, but he was counting on to play a whole lot more this year than he has in the past. And it's I know he's disappointed, but he's certainly the biggest disappointment among the players.
Very good. Dick, always a pleasure to talk to you. What can we look forward to in the next day or two from you on Rattle and Hum?
Well, they're going to Houston this weekend, so fans in Texas have a chance to see them. They're back in the division for 6 games. After Houston, they go to Oakland. It is kind of interesting at this point in time. The only team that they have played that has a winning record is the Boston Red Sox, and they swept them 3 games. But anyway, Yu Darvish pitches Saturday, and if they stay on the normal rotation, he'll open up the homestand next week on a week from today. on Thursday against the Tigers.
Outstanding. Dick, thanks very much for giving us an update on the Texas Rangers, and we look forward to talking to you down the line.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Dic Humphrey covering the Texas Rangers for Rattle and Hum Sports. This is a Rattle and Hum Sports podcast. I'm Bryan Houston. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.